Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for another Chelsea transfer talk, Chelsea transfer news episode this summer, as we just pretend the Euros are now not happening anymore at all, because obviously Austria last night bottled it against Turkey, which is very depressing, so we'll just pretend it didn't happen, because we'll try to focus on Chelsea. The only problem is I find Chelsea almost as depressing as Austria being knocked out of the Euros, because a lot of the stuff that Chelsea do, it's just not fully on board with. But there are a few quite interesting and crazy bits to talk about today. Obviously, yesterday we didn't get round to it with Austria playing in the evening. Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall officially signing for Chelsea yesterday for £30 million. Michael Golding going the other way for £5 million to Leicester City. But there's more. There's more, obviously. Marc Guiu, as we have learned that we pronounce his name. He's been officially announced a couple of days ago. Carney Chukwuemeka has a release clause in his contract. Ben Chilwell could be sold. But for me, the biggest news, and I know this sounds a bit silly and people will probably have a go at me again for being negative, but hey, it is what it is. For me, arguably even bigger than signing Dewsbury Hall, we might be going into another season without the sponsor on the shirt. Can you guys remember when Ben Barley came out and said Chelsea weren't particularly well run on and off the pitch? And since then, they've failed 2.5 years long, failed to get a sponsor for the fucking shirt, man. Like, this is embarrassing. Everything they do is embarrassing. Anyway, let's start with a slightly more positive topic, I suppose. Charlie, we have, of course, signed Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. Thoughts? Happy with the signing? Do you think it's a good sign? Do you think it's a bad sign? What do you reckon?
I don't think it's a bad signing. I just think it's a signing that perhaps wasn't necessarily needed. I like him. I think he's a good player. He's creative. He's got an eye for goal. 26 goal contributions in the Championship last season. He was the best player on the pitch by a mile when we played Leicester in the FA Cup last season at Stamford Bridge. He's definitely someone that's got something about him. You could argue that it is a profile of midfield player that we don't have in the squad. Left-footed, eye for goal. Enzo hasn't got an eye for goal, neither does Caicedo, neither does Lavia. Gallagher is probably the guy who has the most goal threat from midfield, and even then, he's not exactly, prolific from there.
You still had 17 goals and assists last season.
But that's what. But if he goes, then that profile is not there in the squad. So I wonder whether this is a signing to preempt the fact that Gallagher's going, to then add that creative outlet into midfield that, despite the quality midfielders we don't have someone who scores goals from midfield, and we don't have someone that is creative from midfield that's going to rack up sort of 10 plus assists or get close to double figures for goals. Because as good as Enzo, Caicedo, Lavia are, etc., they're not doing that side of the game. And that's a really important part of football, is to have goals from midfield. We saw how we had the best to ever do it in Frank Lampard, goals from midfield. You see how important goals from midfield are. And all the money we've spent, we actually don't have someone that is even a semi-regular source of goals from midfield. So I think that for me ticks a box. I would say my one concern, look, obviously when he was in the Premier League last time, he was very much sort of breaking into the team at Leicester. I've spoken to a few Leicester
fans. Can I quickly interrupt you there? That's exactly my concern. Because, yeah, you're right. And in theory, you wouldn't think that's a bad thing. But the problem is when that happened, he was older than pretty much every single player in our squad right now is. That's what I mean? Like last time Dewsbury Hall played Premier League, he was 24.
But he'd only just broken in. I've literally just speaking to a Leicester fan about this now. He was a bit of a late developer. He didn't break into Leicester, into the Leicester team until he was about 22, 23. But you can think of that what you want. Drogba didn't turn pro until he was like 21, 22 or whatever. I'm not saying he's going to go and be a Drogba-like player, but you do get players that are slightly later developers. But look, I hope he does well. The big plus is, and this is recruitment that we should be doing, is rather than just going for names, is getting players that suit the system and play the way that we want to play. And him knowing Maresca's system inside out is a big plus. So I look at this and think, whilst it's not necessary, there are obviously positives to it, but it absolutely isn't a priority signing, in my opinion.
No, I agree with that. It's a weird one. Like, obviously, people tried to paint me as this super negative guy recently. I'm not. Maybe I am that, and I am naive and ignorant to myself, and I'm not fully aware of it. But I think I'm slightly being painted in a bad light here. But I try to look at the positives here, and like you touched on, the fact that he is a left-footed midfielder, I do not mind that. The only thing, and my main question here still is, we all think, all of us, I think that in Maresca's system, Cole Palmer is much more suited to being one of the eights than he is to being a winger. Even though I know it is actually Enzo Maresca that turned Cole Palmer into a right winger from in the City Academy being a number 8, number 10. Maresca was the guy that put him on the wing. So I guess that could suggest, well, he's clearly knows how to make Palmer work on the wing. But still, the way he plays and wanting touchline wingers that stay wide, that doesn't scream Cole Palmer one bit. So then if you then don't conclude Cole Palmer as a right winger, but instead as a number 8, then there is your left-footed player there. Do you know what I mean? So even that potential benefit to Dewsbury Hall is a bit of a small question mark.
He's looking for players like, that Matt Law article that came out last night is looking for players that can play multiple roles within the squad. So I don't necessarily think that, you could, if Chelsea don't sign another right-sided player, then yeah, cool. Cole Palmer could easily go on that right-hand side and be the other, let's say the other winger would be the first choice on the right-hand side. But, it's good to have it's good to have like options in there. Absolutely good to have options in there. So I don't necessarily think that just because Dewsbury Hall signed that it means Cole Palmer is going to play right wing. Cole Palmer could well play right wing a number of times next season. He could also play number 8. We are potentially.
100%. I just more meant that because you said, well, we don't have his profile.
Oh, no, I get that. Yeah, I do get that.
But if Palmer counts as a midfielder, then we kind of do. That's what I was trying to get at, if anything. Because, like I say, I do think you have a point. And obviously, there was a report that has come out that, Maresca is supposedly looking at a lot of Swiss Army knife type players that can fill a lot of positions, which, honestly, I didn't really necessarily think that that's the kind of player he was looking for, considering how strict he wants to be within his own system, supposedly. That doesn't, if you're very adamant on one specific system, I feel like it doesn't really lend itself too well to Swiss Army knife players. Rather, you would be better off having specialists in each of those required positions for the manager. Because if you have a manager at Chelsea, he didn't do that as much, but throughout his career, at least he did. Like Thomas Tuchel, who plays a lot of different ways, then it makes sense to have players that can do a lot of different things. But if you have a manager that plays one way pretty much all of the time, why do you need players that are good at new things? Surely just buy players that are good at what you want them to do. So I don't fully understand that, but it's also Matt Law. He might just be waffling. By the way, shout out Lewis. Shout out everybody who's joined from Lewis Stream. Hit that like button. Big up yourself and subscribe. That would be massively appreciated. We have a few interesting questions as well from E. Santiago. I will get to you. And again, shout out you, Lewis. Appreciate you. Fire Red says, guess Dewsbury Hall is the backup to Palmer. I don't know. That will be one of the questions. Dimitar, I'll come to you. Where do you stand on it? Because Charlie said it earlier, maybe it's preempting a potential Gallagher departure. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is this signing Dewsbury Hall to make Gallagher leave? Because Gallagher would be like, well, I might want to stay, but they're not going to play me now, are they? So maybe I am actually better off leaving rather than waiting for Gallagher to leave and only then signing his replacement. You sign a replacement first and then make him think, oh shit, they really don't want me. I'm off then. How do you see it? What do you think of the signing?
That kind of makes sense, and it looks like a Gallagher replacement. In my eyes, this transfer is something that we don't need, because I think at the end of the day, it would be more beneficial, in my opinion, for Chelsea to try and keep Gallagher and try and use him. Even if it's with, let's say, another 1-year extension or 2-year extensions and adding in some release clause so they can sell him on later. I think Gallagher proved last season he can be useful, and I am not sure that he would cause trouble, even if he's not a regular starter. So for me, replacing Gallagher with Dewsbury Hall is probably the most logical analysis of the situation, and in my opinion, it's not an improvement. At best, it would be a level replacement, which is still, I don't think it was needed, because as we have mentioned a lot of times in the group chat, we need to do a lot of business in this transfer market. And this position was not what we were all expecting to be the first big signing, so to say. No. Because this is the first serious signing, because I don't think we can count Kaliman and that boy from Barcelona, I'm not going to even try to pronounce his name, as serious signings because they will most probably not impact the first team this year. So, I don't know. For me, it's kind of strange. And for me, it's kind of signaling a bit of a shift in the board transfer policy because they hopefully realized that they cannot keep spending 70, 80, 100 million pounds on just random players and then say to the manager, well, you have to fit this player. Improvement overall.
He's back.
Sorry?
All good. We can hear you again. Go on.
So I wanted to say, I think this transfer is a bit of an improvement on the previous transfer policy we had because we didn't sign an over-expensive player, which we don't know how to fit because presumably Maresca knows how he could use Dewsbury Hall.
Yeah.
If that is the truth, we will see. But for me, it's not an impressive move. I don't know how to feel about it, if I have to be honest. We'll have to see how he does and how he is used.
Yeah, no, I think that is the main thing. I think it's one of those signings that, as of right now, is a bit of a meh signing, but he could turn out to be good, and he could turn out to just be meh. But then, like you just said, at least it didn't cost that much. The only thing that is weird about changing the kind of the type of transfer we want to make, and I'm not saying that's going to be all the time now, but just in this specific case, we've spent so much money on such young players. Much more logical would have been signing young players for 30 million and then 26-year-olds for 100 million. That would have made way more sense than the other way around. Because what kind of 26-year-olds do you get for 30 million? Average ones. Do you know what I mean? So it would have made much, but you can still get super talented 18-year-olds for 30 mil. I mean, ask Esteban Willian or Kendrick Perez. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's possible. I'm not saying they will be superstars, but at least they're very talented. But when you're 26 and you're going for the 30 mil type players, I don't know. I think Dimitar hit the nail on the head. For me, it's a bit of a sideways step. Now, some people think it's a massive improvement, like the Demonant, however I pronounce the name. Sorry, bro. He says it's a massive improvement. Hall brings goals and assists and can do the hard work. Now, whether you are right or wrong, only time will tell for sure, because well, in the Premier League, Gallagher has been much better both at scoring goals and providing assists, even when playing for worse teams. Gallagher had a better goal and assist return in the Premier League for West Brom than Dewsbury Hall had for Leicester. Dewsbury Hall only turned out to be good at scoring goals and getting assists in the Championship. Never before that in the Premier League or the Europa League or the Conference League. No, none of these competitions. It was ever particularly great at that. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but, the comment here says he brings goals and assists. Well, he's only done that for one season, and that season was a level below the level where we are currently playing. So that's the other worry I have about it, because we bring him in now, everybody's trying to hype him up because they, Chelsea fans are like that. They get their dopamine rush from new signings. So they're like, okay, look at how the goal contributions he had last season. And then what if we come into November and he scored one goal and had one assist? People will be fuming already and they will abuse him and slate him like we do with every Chelsea.
It depends how we're doing. If we're sort of...
No, but it doesn't matter though. But Chelsea fans will abuse
also,
bro.
Guys,
have you like the last 3 years, we abused everyone. It doesn't matter. Enzo's got abused, Caicedo's got abused, Mudrik's got abused, even Palmer's got abused when the whole penalty debacle. Why didn't you give it to Madueke FC? People even have a go at Palmer. Of all people, Palmer, right? So we abuse anyone. And
but guys, is he going to even play?
Contextualize things. Go on, Dimitra. Go on.
Is he going to even play? I mean, is this a starting 11 signing?
I think he starts. I'll be honest. I think he starts. Maybe not straight away, but
surely only straight away that it makes sense. Because he knows Maresca.
I think I personally think he's going to play a lot more than what people are expecting. I honestly think the first choice midfield could be Enzo, Caicedo, and Dewsbury Hall.
Okay, so then for you, Palmer will start on the right wing from the beginning, let's say, or this will be the ultimate system.
Yeah, I think Palmer might start on the right-hand side. Again, it depends on if we bring another wide player in. There's still obviously the window's still open for just under 2 months. So
but we're supposedly looking for right-footed wide players.
Yeah,
now,
there's still a lot of
the right side anyway.
There's still a lot of time to go in the window, but I think depending on what business we do, if we do bring any wide players in or not, I suspect I think he'll start more often than not. He might start on the bench for the first month or so, for the first few games or whatever.
But Charlie, don't you think because he is the one that knows Maresca's system, unlike everybody else, that it would make way more sense the other way around, that he is the guy that starts from the beginning, and then once everybody else catches up with how the system works, then
maybe. But there's also
let me ask you a follow-up question on you saying you think he will start, because I think there's a chance you're right? That midfield three that you touched on will be the start midfield. But that means Palmer on the right, and that means where do you put Nkunku? Because if you then put Nkunku on the left, which has been talked about, if you do that, then you have Nkunku on the left, Palmer on the right. Neither of them are touchline wingers. So that goes against everything that Maresca's system at Leicester stood for. So that doesn't really work with that. Then you could play Nkunku as striker, very much so possible. But we haven't really seen that work. It might work, but we haven't seen it work. So it's very risky. So it's just, like I say, I think it's a sideways step in the sense I do think he's a bit of an upgrade on Conor Gallagher, but I do think he's a downgrade in terms of work rate, and I do think he's a downgrade in terms of off the ball. Not necessarily the Dewsbury Hall is bad, by the way. Just Conor Gallagher is especially great at those.
Yeah, so definitely on those off-ball attributes, he is obviously not as good, but on the ball and technically, Dewsbury Hall is a lot better than Gallagher.
I think a lot is an over-exaggeration.
Well, maybe not a lot, but he is better than Gallagher. No,
he may be better. But I would also say, if this is a replacement for Gallagher, we're also downgrading in experience. Because Conor Gallagher has way more Premier League experience and way more experience at that level, even though he's nearly 2 years younger, which is the next weird bit. So, I think it's a bit of a sideways step. What you can look at, though, is obviously if we sell Gallagher for, say, 50 million of pure profit, and you sign Dewsbury Hall for 30 million, amortized across 5 years, obviously you can see some sort of logic in that. Even if you're not a fan of it, I think all of us, no one is really calling him generally a downgrade on Gallagher. I've not seen anyone call him that anyway. Maybe there's some people out there, but I've not seen anyone do that yet. So a sideways step in terms of player for significant profit in terms of money, I guess from a business perspective, I do see a logic in that. It's just a question of how it will really be implemented. Because like Charlie said, if he is a starter, what are we doing with Nkunku? What are we doing with Palmer? Like, what? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just
I really wouldn't be surprised, if Nkunku was played a lot as a 9 next season, because in a 4-3-3, there is no 10, and we don't know how much license Maresca might. Generally speaking, at Leicester with Mavididi and Fatawu, they were obviously very much hugging the touchline wingers, which Nkunku and Palmer both aren't. You don't know what license there might be, but I suspect that there's a chance that Nkunku will play a lot at 9 next season. Which
the only weird thing I find about it is that we seem to still be kind of considering signing a striker, and we now signed Dewsbury Hall, even though at least all the media briefs, and to be fair, Pice has had this as well, that we were looking at Dewsbury Hall way before ever looking at Enzo Maresca, which fair enough if that's the case. But would we really have signed him? It's one thing looking at a player, it's another thing signing a player. Would we have signed him without getting Maresca? I don't know. So it's just but then the rest of the logic is okay, so if you're then doing this on the basis of what Maresca wants, please do all of the signings on the basis of not necessarily Maresca asking for that player, but players that specifically actually suit the system. And then I'm like, okay, but you signed Marc Guiu. Guiu. I keep mixing up, man. Right? You sign him, but we're supposedly still interested in potentially signing a different striker. Obviously, we sniffed around Isak. There's still chat that if later in the window Napoli drop their valuation of Osimhen, then we might be back in for that. God knows, right? Obviously, now it's after June 30th, so now the financial flexibility on our side is probably a little bit bigger than it was until now. But it makes no sense to buy another striker if you want Nkunku as a striker. So surely we should just ask Maresca what he wants. There's reports that Nkunku will be tried in various positions in pre-season. But isn't that a problem in and of itself? What? So you're going to give him a half at left wing, a half at right wing, maybe a half up front, and a half at number 8. Sure, as if you're going to be able to tell anything out of that. Nothing you're going to be able to tell. It means nothing. In training, sure, they can practice with him in various positions and then see what it does. But playing a half or even a game of pre-season doesn't tell you he's going to be good here forever or he's going to be bad here forever at all, in my opinion. So it's a weird one. Let me quickly bring up a different slide here, and let's just quickly listen to how Dewsbury Hall himself would actually describe himself as a player, because I do think that is actually quite interesting. Turns out I'm using a different browser here today compared to what I usually use, and that doesn't order things when I try to play them. So that's brilliant. Anyway, let's listen to that and see what he has to say. Let's make it full screen.
I'd say I'm a box-to-box midfielder, somebody that likes to attack, drive at defenders, make things happen, goals and assists, hopefully, but also will give 100% for the team defensively. And yeah, someone that's just overall can contribute in every aspect of the game. Of course, last season was a positive year for me, and coming into this year, I feel like a new player now, full of confidence, full of motivation to get going. And I don't see a better fit than coming to Chelsea and testing that against some top players and playing with top players. So yeah, I'm in a great space. I'm really looking forward to getting going.
I mean, it is interesting, and he speaks well. I mean, you'd expect it. It's his first language, so yeah, I'm not expecting him to stutter over his own words. But still, like Dimitar hinted at earlier, I do like the fact that we're going for a bit of an older person, not another kid, because I do think our squad needs that. Ricky does say it kind of looks nervous. It's true, but wouldn't you be when you're moving clubs and then there's this, PR media guy of Chelsea, of your new club, in front of you holding a camera, and you're kind of just talk about yourself a little bit. It's kind of awkward. Do you know what I mean? So unless you're like Neymar or I don't know, Ronaldo, and you really love yourself, I think everyone would be a bit awkward if you're asked that kind of question. But yeah, I don't know. I just hope it goes well. I really do. But in terms of what Charlie said earlier, right, that the Leicester fans are saying, okay, he broke into the team quite late. He's a bit of a late bloom in that sense. But what that tells me is if he wasn't 26, he is actually still 25. He turns 26 in September. If he was, say, 20 right now, Chelsea wouldn't be interested at all, because when he was 20, he wasn't any good. So what does that tell us about all of the rest of our project and all of the rest of our scouting? Do you know what I mean? That's the bit I find a bit weird, because doesn't it go against everything we're trying to sign right now, where it seems like we only think players are any good if they're amazing by the time they hit 16, and if they're not, well, they're clearly not good enough. So doesn't Dewsbury Hall, because of that, make no sense? At the same time, I guess there's also a case of, well, we bank on the early talents, and then on a few occasions we also bank on the ones that maybe weren't as talented in their youth but then turn out to actually become good players. I guess there is a positive spin on that. My problem is I still just doubt that they know what they're doing. So I can't just sit here and say, oh yeah, this is great because of this logic and that logic. I just don't think there is logic in most of the things that our club does, unfortunately. But yeah, like Bobby says, 180 people watching, only 30 likes. Support the channel. Hit that like button for me. It's just one click of a button that really helps me out. So please hit that. That would be massively appreciated. And if you would subscribe, if you haven't done that yet, that would also be fantastic. Dimitar, Charlie, I'll go with you first. Dimitar, anything more you would like to add? What did you make of him, the way he spoke there? Like I say, at the end of the day, it's the kind of signing we just need to wait and see how it goes, really. It's difficult to make a full judgment now, I think.
Yes, we can't judge him, but I just want to ask one question to you guys. Do you guys think that this transfer will be the make or break of the Enzo Maresca reign at Chelsea? Do you think this transfer will make a meaningful impact on how this next season will end?
No.
Because, so, then
I think those are two different questions, if that makes sense. But no to both anyway, if that makes sense. Because if this is make a break for Maresca, well, then we might as well sack him tomorrow, because you know what I mean? Then you're already done.
And the thing for me is that you, Laurenz, and other content creators, and Connor has done in a couple of videos this opinion that we still need some specific players, some specific skill sets to make this Maresca system fit. And I don't think the Dewsbury Hall is exactly what we need. He may turn out to be great. He may turn out to be a fantastic servant and all of that. But I think the board should be looking at other priorities. Maybe like the goalkeeper, which we will probably touch upon a bit later, because I think this is a more pressing matter, and this is going to be a lot more definitive of what happens to Chelsea next season. So yeah, overall, let's see what he does. We should not be negative. We should not be positive. Let's just wait and see.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're not here to talk about Enzo Maresca specifically. By the way, where is he? Like, he's been working at Cobham since July 1st. We know that he's done all sorts of media duties when he signed his contract, but Chelsea have still released nothing. Why? I don't understand. They're very strange. But I personally would still not be surprised if Enzo Maresca plays more differently to what he does at Leicester than people are expecting. I personally think that, because like Dimitar said, if he was so adamant on one type of way of playing, we're signing the completely wrong players. So again, either the club and the board just have zero idea of what they're doing and none of it makes sense, or, and that's why I'm clutching on that straw, I suppose, Maresca will do things a little bit more differently than people are expecting, which would make sense because, yes, you have a plan in your head and you have an idea of football in your head, but when you have certain players, that can change things. Like, we saw what he does in the championship with championship players. He might do different things with our players, because with the only real things we have to go off is Leicester in the championship, Parma in Serie B, I think at the time, for 14 games, and Manchester City's youth team. So he hasn't had a top-level first team yet. So there's a good chance he does things all the same, but I think there's also a small chance that things change more than maybe people are expecting. That's all I'm trying to say. But, you know, I don't know. I'm just saying it could be the case. Dimitar touched on goalkeeper. I want to touch, before that, I want to touch on this, to me, absolutely shocking situation of Chelsea potentially going into another season. Again, I need to try and find it. There it is. Potentially going into another season without a front of shirt sponsor. So the Matt Law report, and again, it's Matt Law, so make of it what you will. But he says Chelsea are looking at short-term front of shirt sponsor options. There also remains the possibility that Chelsea start a second successive season wearing sponsorless shirts, despite optimism that a deal can be clinched by then. Now, some people that call me negative will probably say, read the last sentence. Yeah, well, that's what they said last year. And then we didn't have a sponsor until what? September, October, whenever it was. You couldn't buy the shirts with the sponsor on until November, I think, right? And okay, so someone said it very, very in the beginning of the chat, you know, because sponsors want Champions League football. Without Champions League, we get low ball sponsor offers. This is right. Like, Mully H is correct in what he's saying here. The problem is still, they literally sat there saying Chelsea is badly run on and off the pitch, and, you know, we're not making enough money from a sponsorship perspective, blah, 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 blah. And now they haven't even managed to turn up with an actual sponsor yet, other than weird, slightly dodgy-looking crypto companies like BingX, and like companies they essentially founded themselves in Infinite Athlete to give us at least some sort of sponsor. Then they've come up with nothing else. Well, sorry, they've come up with, what was it? What was the betting sponsor again that we nearly got? Steak. Yeah, exactly. Steak. So brilliant. At least we would have been medium rare. I mean, like, that was the only thing they could have come up with. Like, it's unbelievable. The embarrassment of it, it's just mind-boggling. And do I understand the logic? Yes, we're trying to look for a shorter-term sponsor, because when we do make Champions League again, I find it interesting to use the word when rather than if, because for me this is an if, not a when. But anyway, when they make Champions League football again, they then think, okay, we can get a bigger deal. So that's why they don't want to sign a 5 or 10-year deal like most sponsorship deals are, because we're now selling ourselves undervalued compared to when we would be in the Champions League again. So I understand the logic. But are you really telling me that Chelsea Football Club, and as bad as we are still a huge brand, an absolutely huge brand? You cannot tell me that if you're not penny pinching like certain fans always had a go at from Marino Granovskaya, you wouldn't have long got a shirt sponsor already. But they have failed to do so, other than a betting company. Do you know what I mean? So I just think it's poor, man. I just think it's poor. I mean, people were trying to sell us. We already have a pre-agreement with, what was it, Ria there or whatever it was. Like, yeah, definitely they were in the front of the shirt. They were telling us last October, they were telling us that. Well, now look, that didn't happen. Shock. Because they were probably telling Ria that, yeah, we'll be in the Champions League next season. Except that you signed all 12-year-old players and they're not going to be good straight away. So, Charlie, I'll go with you first. Do you think this is as embarrassing as I think it is? Like, do you maybe don't see this as bad of a thing? And don't get me wrong, it's not because I don't like the sponsorless shirts. I bought last season's shirt sponsorless as well, and I think it looks great. I love it. But I don't know, man. Like, they literally sat there, and these American businessmen sat there saying we are badly run on and off the pitch, and now this. Like, I just think it's embarrassing. But you tell me how you feel about it, Charlie.
Look, I mean, it's not something that I'm going to particularly lose any sleep over. I do get that it obviously, from a from a business perspective, it doesn't look great when you see all the clubs launching their shirts for the new season, where you see a lot of teams
still announcing signings with the old kit.
Yeah,
Like,
when you see teams playing in the new home shirt on the last game of the last game of the season, that's generally a thing that happens. And it's not a great position to be in. I do think there is a strong chance they can just fall back on Infinite Athlete and they could sponsor again next season. I do understand why I'm sure if their lives depended on it, they could get a sponsor. But I don't think, as you said, they want to get involved in a long-term sponsorship deal when hopefully we get back into the Champions League and there'll be a lot more lucrative sponsors. What they're looking for is probably a short-term solution before then getting a more lucrative sponsorship deal once we are obviously back in Champions League football, whenever that might be. I actually prefer to sponsor the shirts from a fan perspective. I'm not really that arsed, but I do get it that
the next season's kit is absolutely vile and only a sponsor can pay
it's not a good look from a business perspective.
Yeah.
It's like it's not a difficult. I'll say it's not a difficult thing to sort out, but it's something that should be sorted out. And look, whether the contingency plan is, look, they say to Infinite Athlete that look, just sponsor the shirt next season, or can you do half of next season and we're going to have a deal in place for the second half, or whatever it might be. I think worst case scenario, we play the first few games without a sponsor, or it'll just be Infinite Athlete on the shirt again until we find something. So
that's the thing I find so baffling, right? The fact that, because the way it was reported the last few weeks and months, even though we knew obviously we hadn't found a new sponsor yet, the talk was always, okay, if it's not a new sponsor, it's just going to be Infinite Athlete again. But Matt Law then says there's a potential we have no front of shirt sponsor, which is like, what do you mean we can't even have Infinite Athlete on there? Like, I know being extra now the training kit sponsor and Infinite Athlete is on the sleeve, but just put them on the chest then if you have to. Like, it's essentially our company, man. Like, we can do whatever the flip we want with them. Why is this a conversation? I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately, I'm not really that fussed. I get it. It doesn't look great from a business perspective and whatnot. That these guys, that's not their only job, but that's one of their main jobs to sort out. They've had God knows how long to try and sort it out. Look, if you need to go for a short-term deal, go for a short-term deal. And then we can find something more long-term once we're back in Europe, as I said. But yeah, I'd be surprised if we started the season sponsorless, because you could just literally just whack the Infinite Athlete on. So I don't think we'll start the season sponsorless. But yeah, it's not a great look if we're being honest.
No, it isn't. I mean, Tobe says our potential rise is too high to sign a 3 or even a 2-year deal. Maybe that's a valid point to make. I don't know. But to me, it's like, wouldn't you still be better off to sign a slightly below value deal for a year with someone than not having a deal again? Because, you know what I mean? Like, just sign with someone for 30, 35, 40 million a year. Make it a 1-year deal that you say, okay, we either extend it or we don't.
That's what Infinite Athlete was a 1-year deal.
Yeah, no, well, exactly.
And they weren't even on
count because it's our own thing. Like,
yeah, they weren't even on the shirt for a year. They weren't even on the shirt for a whole season.
No, exactly. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe to be fair, now that you make that point, maybe that's why we're still announcing all of the signings with the old kit that has Infinite Athlete on it. But then again, we didn't even do that. Dewsbury Hall was just announced in the flipping training kit.
Yeah.
Well, they did pictures holding the shirt up.
Yeah, they did. But the main picture, the first picture they released, was in a new training shirt.
Yeah.
Dimitar, what do you think? Do you find it embarrassing? You stand with like what Charlie said? You stand with me, somewhere in the middle? What do you reckon?
I find it embarrassing and a bit confusing, because if there's one thing that these people should be good at, it's marketing, it's PR, it's connections. And you're telling me that people who run I think $100 billion hedge fund in the USA cannot find a shirt sponsor for the most popular and watched league in the world?
It's
like,
weird.
It's really weird.
It just makes
no
sense.
I don't know. The thing is, it doesn't bother me if the shirt has a sponsor or not, but it's a matter of principle, and they just fail. They fail at every single thing they try to do, which is concerning, in my opinion. So,
yes. I don't disagree, unfortunately. I don't disagree. Let me highlight this super chat here by Sasko, which is kind of going back to Dewsbury Hall a little bit. He says, fans like talking about off-the-ball quality, but I am trying to rephrase to make it a bit more sense. Runners will get exposed when it comes to crunch time ball. When it comes to crunch time, ball never lies. The cream always rises to the top. First of all, I think it's a load of waffle because I think Conor Gallagher proved exactly your point last year. When things got tough, who was the one that stood out? Conor Gallagher. Yes, fair enough. It was Poch ball, and Poch ball is more about running than Maresca ball will be. So sure, the way Pochettino played most certainly helped Conor Gallagher. But what really annoys me about the discourse about Conor Gallagher is that people still sit here and say, oh, he's technically so bad. I literally had someone in my reply to me on Twitter. He's one of the worst technical players he's ever seen. I'm like, no. Like, first of all, this has never been true. But even if we pretend it was true until last season quite literally proved the opposite. Gallagher proved more last season than Dewsbury Hall has in his entire career, because Dewsbury Hall did last season in the Championship and has never had a good season in the Premier League. Conor Gallagher had multiple good seasons in the Premier League at Palace and with Chelsea. Like, let alone what he did with West Brom when his first goal when he was 19, 20 years old, and still had more goal contributions than Dewsbury Hall in 2 years of Premier League with Leicester. And let's not forget, in the first season, Leicester weren't even that bad. They finished in Conference League spots. They finished 8th or 7th. And still he had 1 goal, 2 assists at 23. It's not all about goals and assists. But still, remember the comment earlier? I was like, but Dewsbury Hall will bring goals and assists from midfield. Maybe. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. He's only proven it in the Championship. So, I don't know. And again, in my opinion, Gallagher shouldn't be a starter at Chelsea. He should just be at Chelsea because he's a very, very useful player to have in and around your squad. When you have injuries, first of all, he's never injured. Second of all, he's ready to be an impact player off the bench. And when you need him to, he's ready to be a player to start games. Now, Dewsbury Hall may be that too. But again, we haven't seen that happen. We're purely speculating that he might be that. We don't know if he is that. But hey, I'm going on for too long. I mean, I'll let you quickly respond to it as well, Charlie. The super chat. Do you not also feel that the discourse on Gallagher being so bad technically is clearly been disproven last year, and it's kind of weird that people still pretend like
it's just tiresome. Like, at the end of the day, like, people, like, if that's their opinion, that's their opinion. But it's just the evidence couldn't be proved that wrong anymore. It's fine. You don't have to like every player. That's fine, not a problem. But let's not make stuff up about players just to sort of make yourself feel better, or these sorts of things. Look, should he be starting week in, week out for a Chelsea side that's looking to win the biggest trophies in the game? No. But does he absolutely have a role to play? And is his skill set of value to the squad? Yes. So, I don't understand the discourse surrounding him. Like, he's one of our own players. He's been here his whole life. He's never moaned about the football club. He loves playing for us. Whatever minutes he gets, he gets on with it. He always puts in effort, plays for the badge every week, and yet people still have a go at him. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's just weird. Strange. It's just weird, in my opinion.
It's like having a cousin, and when you have a family gathering, you just abuse your cousin the whole time.
Yeah, and then
you've got, nice to your cousin. Why are you doing that?
Then you've got people that still that would support Timo Werner to the hills, and he was a lovely guy, sure. But he's a lovely guy, sure. But they'd support him to the hill. But they'd hammer. But then they'll just criticise Gallagher. So
who refused to go to Tottenham, by the way? Yeah. Otherwise, he would already be there. Let's be real. Yeah. If he didn't refuse to go there, he would long have gone there, because Chelsea were trying to sell, no matter how badly.
It doesn't.
And now that won't happen either, because now Spurs signed Archie Gray, didn't they? So the likelihood of them still going for Gallagher.
That's a great buy as well.
Great buy, arguably much better than Dewsbury Hall. But hey, it's weird me saying that, because Archie Gray's young and Dewsbury Hall isn't, and I keep talking about experience. But playing in a Championship is not experience. So, and with the same as Tosin. Yeah, great. Also 26, 3 years after that in the Championship. Fucking brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, we touched on the shirt, no sponsor and everything. So why don't we take a quick look? And I'm sure all of you have seen it already, but, let's quickly talk about it. Chelsea's kit for next season, apparently. Obviously there's no guarantee it will be that, but supposedly it will be that. That is the kit. I think it looks like a bit like a tie-dye thing that I made in primary school, really. When you like put a white shirt in like collar, and then you twist like a rope around it and tie it up, and then you let it dry, and then it looks like this. That's what I feel anyway. Is it the most disgusting shirt I've ever seen? No, we won the Champions League in the most disgusting shirt I've ever seen. That will never be topped. That half snakeskin, half dodgy chessboard will never be topped. But this is a close second in worst shirt. I mean, for me, and please, ladies and gentlemen in the chat, you put your rating out of 10 for this new shirt in the chat as well. I'd probably give it like a 4 out of 10. But if you add the shorts to it as well, who have the same pattern on it, the shorts,
it's full kit is going to look horrendous.
Exactly. So with the shorts, I probably put it down to like a 2. So, I mean, Dimitar, what would you give this shirt? What are your thoughts on this shirt?
I don't know. I just think that Nike have not done a good job at Chelsea in general, and this kit is the pinnacle of it. I also didn't like last year's kits. That's my opinion. Some guys liked it, some not. But this one is absolutely... This looks like they took a training shirt, they pimped it up a little bit, and they said, perfect, fine, we take it. So, I don't know. It looks like nothing to me.
It does. It just looks weird. What would you give it out of 10 if I put you on the spot?
Maybe 2 or 3. It really depends what type of pattern the shorts are. If it's going to be exactly the same,
exactly
because if it's then maybe a 2. I don't know. It's
fair enough. I mean, I do think that this kind of shirt will actually look a bit better with a sponsor, because then you will notice the weird patterns a little less, because there will be something that stands out more from the shirt once you have a sponsor on it. Unlike last season's shirt, which I thought looked better without it, even though the Infinite Athlete didn't actually make it look bad anyway. Charlie, your thoughts? I know you're more about who cares, but you're a man that loves a shirt. You own a lot of the Chelsea shirts, so thoughts? What would you rate it?
On sort of, not without seeing it in person, without seeing sort of it on the shelf or on the players or whatnot, it's hard to make a proper judgment. Last season, when the first picks come out of the home kit last season, I sort of thought, that's not that great, that. And then actually, it's probably the best one Nike have done for us. So I'm not saying this is going to go into that category, but I think people's opinions might change when you actually see it properly. But I do agree. I think the patterns are... It's almost hurts your eyes to look at it. It feels like it's a bit like a hypnosis sort of vibe to it. Of all these weird,
maybe that is the plan. We know we can't beat teams normally, so we need to hypnotize them.
Maybe. Look, I don't think it's awful. I quite like the orange on the sleeve. I quite like the orange around the badge.
See, that's what I agree with, bro. I agree. I actually don't mind the orange, but I think if you're gonna do orange, don't go crazy on the pattern.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do a crazy pattern, don't add orange, which we've never had before. Like, orange is an out there color for Chelsea Football Club. Yeah. Leave it at orange. That's enough crazy already.
There's some good aspects to it. I just think the patterns are okay, but they're way too in your face. They need to be a lot more subtle and a lot more discreet. But ultimately, what this comes down to is home shirts need to go back to being every 2 years, because you're just running out of ideas now. Like, why does there need to be a home shirt every season?
Yeah, I mean, money, that's why, but yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously, but you know what I mean, though? Like, do you need a home shirt every season? You don't. Why does there got to be a new home shirt every season? It used to be every 2 years. Obviously, it's a money thing, but like, how many ideas can you get? And I just think with like a lot of kit manufacturers now are well ahead of the likes of Nike and Adidas, because Nike and Adidas just do template kits.
Yeah.
Like, it's so... Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this will happen now, but there was talk for a little bit that Barcelona will start to produce their own kits rather than being manufactured
to save money.
Nike. Exactly. Yeah. And there's a team in Austria doing it as well. They played Liverpool in the Europa League last year, LASK. They do that as well. And they actually, for them, this brings a lot of extra revenue, because I'm not sure if people are aware, but when Chelsea sell kits, they only get like bit more, maybe. Every club has a slightly different deal, obviously, but usually most clubs get around 5% of the actual merchandise revenue. Well, of the actual kit revenue. Not all merchandise. Obviously, if they sell you a Chelsea mug in a Chelsea megastore, they keep all the revenue for that, because it's not by Nike. But why do you think Nike pays us 60 million a year only for Chelsea to keep every penny of sales? No, obviously not. So the large majority of the money we get from Nike is from the 60 mil, and then Nike get the money from the shirt sales, the large majority of it. So that's why, you know, it would be an interesting way of looking at it. I'll bring up quickly another slide where you can see the pictures, if I ever find them. Where is it? Where is it? Why is it not here? See, this is, I don't like this. Why is it not in order anymore? Like, I've just opened it. There it is. There you go. So these are supposedly the shorts. like I say, same pattern, not great.
Yeah, that's
Personally,
gonna look awful.
yeah, it will. I wonder about, will the socks be that as well? Will the socks be white? I don't know. Will the socks be white with this pattern on it? I don't know. The away shirt, though, this kind of cream white, whatever you want to call it, I think slaps. I really like the away shirt. I really like the away shirt. The third kit, I do actually like the idea of pink and black. I think pink and black usually looks great. But what is the strange pattern again?
Mate, they just ruined it. It's like a good kit, right? Like we've been calling for so long now for like, it's a third kit thing, really. Have the lion, like not the badge. And yet they've then ruined it by, I don't mind the pattern on the shirt so much. Put the Nike tick in the fucking right direction. What is that about?
You know what it's supposed to like symbolize a flame, right? So that's the idea.
Oh, well, there we go. But
it's obviously it's pink and not red, but obviously with that little yellow in there, it looks a bit
that's nice. I do like it. I'm just not sure about the tick there. But that, for me, that's probably the best one. The home shirt's the worst by miles.
Yeah, no, I agree. For me, this one is the best one. But yeah, Dimitar, how do you see it? Obviously, with the shorts, what do you think about the away and the third kit? Obviously, again, this is somewhat rumors. Obviously, we've seen a version, a real thing of the home shirt. We haven't done that. We haven't seen that of the away and the third shirt. Well, we did see a real video of the away shirt, but that real video, the home shirt looked different in that video. So God knows what's going to happen to the away shirt. But yeah, what do you think, Dimi?
The third kit looks interesting, and I have this opinion. If you're going to make something, just try and make something original. And the black pink one kind of looks original. Of course, the sideways Nike logo is not the best. No. But yeah, the white t-shirt also, I think it looks fine. Also, on the white t-shirt, I like the neck pattern because it's kind of similar to what I have on me now, which is not a triangle, but it's not round, which I like how this looks.
See, I think, I'm not sure if you've noticed it, but for example, the England shirt has that now. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
If you fold it up, I think it looks real bad. If you fold it down, then I think it looks okay.
I mean,
yeah, mate, the collar's actually all right. A England shirt, like collar up, as you say, horrendous. But actually, when it's folded down, it's fine. It's like it's quite normal.
Yeah.
It looks pretty decent.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But yeah, I like the second and the third kit. The home kit looks strange. I think what's going to be the deal breaker for the home kit is the fabric, because sometimes they do two different fabrics for the Vapor Match Super Edition and the normal one, and it makes a difference. On some of the blue kits, I have seen in the past there were visible differences when you put the two kits next to each other, and they look different. So this may be a deal breaker. If something can make this a bit better, is probably the fabric of it, but I don't know. It's not the best we've seen for sure.
No, it's not the best we've seen for sure. But again, still better than that 2021 shirt with the snake skin and chest pattern. I didn't like it. Maybe some people did. I don't know. But anyways, enough about shirts. Let's get back into Chelsea news. There's a few interesting bits. So last night, Sam C, I'm not sure if you guys know him. He's usually the guy that came out with randomly, and no one knew how he was always the guy that turns out with these, but with essentially the Chelsea news, the team news a little bit before the game. So he said yesterday, top Premier League clubs are interested in signing Ben Chilwell. Then, what's his name? Fabrizio Romano essentially gave a bit of an update on that Ben Chilwell situation. He said there's nothing imminent, but there is a possibility Ben Chilwell could leave, especially if a left-footed defender arrives. Now, first of all, talk about Chile, and then we'll talk about this left-footed defender situation, because, again, a bit strange. But yeah, Charlie, I'll go with you first. I know you, like me, you probably quite like Ben Chilwell, but if Maresca plays like we think he will, I just don't see the point in having Ben Chilwell. So I think if we find someone that wants him, I think we should be selling. How do you see it?
No, I agree. I mean, I've said a number of times that I think one of the biggest losers from Maresca coming in is Chilwell. Yeah, if you believe the reports that are coming out about the way that we want to play, about how he wants a defense that can play in a 3, can play in a 4. For me, Chilwell's characteristics don't suit inverting into midfield, and they don't suit playing as a left-sided centre-back in a 3. So I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, look, Ben Chilwell's done great stuff for the football club, by the way. Let's make no mistake about it. For me, arguably was the best left wing back in the world when playing under Thomas Tuchel. When we were top of the league that season after we won the Champions League, And then obviously him and Reece both got injured and it all fell apart. Like in that Champions League run in that start of that season, mate, he was brilliant. He's been so good for us. The injuries have set him back. You know, the serious hamstring injury, the ACL and whatnot. You know, it's hard to come back from those. Sometimes you're just not the same player. And, you know, again, last season, injuries, not hitting great form. I've always maintained that if he does stay this summer, this for me is his last season next season. If he can't stay fit next season or doesn't do anything of any note, then there's not a future for him. But the fact that, you know, Maresca style of play, the fact that he wants someone that can invert, the fact that he wants someone that can play left-sided centre-back as well and F3 if necessary, Chilwell doesn't tick any of those boxes. The next thing is, does he want to leave? I don't know if he does want to leave. Secondly, what sort of price would the club be looking at as a deal that they might cash in on? And who's looking at him? We know that Man United are obviously in the market for a left back. Luke Shaw and Malacia, dreadful fitness issues. You could maybe
not sure Ben Chilwell helps much if that's your
problem. But you could maybe see that as a potential destination. We know Man City have had interest in the past, but with the injuries, I mean,
with how what City, a bit like Maresca, have moved to in terms of how they play.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And Ake, it doesn't exactly seem Chilwell.
So, look, whilst I like Chile and I'm grateful for what he's done, there's no denying that with the way that Maresca wants to play, Chilwell's characteristics and style of play don't suit that whatsoever. And in a way, he's almost redundant to how Chelsea are going to play next season because he doesn't. I don't believe he's got the skill set to invert. And as I said, he certainly can't play left side in a back three. So I'm not sure what the plans are for him, but I would still be surprised if he did leave, just because I'm not sure what suitors are going to come in and what sort of money might be put on the table for him, coupled with the fact I'm not sure if he's really desperate to leave anyway. Only signed a new contract, last year or whatever. So, yeah, I don't know, but I absolutely agree. He's one of the biggest losers from Maresca coming in, and you know his skill set doesn't suit what we're looking to do.
No.
Now, of course, he could adapt. Let's be fair. There's a chance that he actually, he could surprise us and he could adapt. But in theory, everything that's coming out suggests that Ben Chilwell does not suit what we're looking to do going forward.
Watch Maresca play him left wing. That'd be funny.
That'd be my thoughts on it.
Yeah. Before I go to Dimitar on this, I have one thing that I just find strange about the whole Ben Chilwell situation. I'm not sure if people are aware, but Ben Chilwell was not present at Chelsea's post-season award ceremony where, player of the season, players player of the season, or young player of the season, blah, 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 all these kind of things get awarded. He was not present there. And he was also not at the last game of the season where every other player that was injured, because you'd say, okay, well, he was injured. Why should he be at the last game? Well, pretty much every other player that was injured, from Wesley Fofana to God knows who else, they were all there. But then it's like you could say maybe he was ill, but less than a week after the last Premier League game, he was at the Monaco GP and was like doing interviews with Sky Sports and everything. So I this is probably not a big deal, right? But it's just, how can you not be at the last game when every other injured player is, and a week later you're at the Monaco race? I just find that.
It depends. He could have had personal circumstances.
Yeah, no, he could have done. Yeah. Absolutely, you're right. I'm not saying this is necessarily something bad or something whatever. But I don't know. I just think it's strange, and it doesn't really look like. Let's not forget he's vice captain as well. It's not like he's just some random squad player, and he's one of two players left in the squad that have actually won something at Chelsea. Him and Reece. That's it. Nobody else has won anything. Or was Gallagher in the squad for the?
He wasn't. He wasn't.
He was in the squad for Baku, but he didn't play.
But he was not in the squad for the season after the Champions League either, was he?
No, I think he was at Crystal Palace then.
Was he still? Okay. Yeah, because obviously he won the Champions League, and then the season after he won the Super Cup and the Club World Cup. That's what I mean. Yeah. It was the season after. But yeah, he probably wasn't there anymore either. Dimitar, where do you stand? Do you agree with myself and Charlie that just with the manager that's coming in, whether you like Chilwell or not, it's not really a point. So in an ideal world, you would probably sell him, because we seemingly need to sell one of the left backs. And if you keep Chilwell and sell Cucurella, well, we're going back to our club having no idea what they're doing, because if this manager is coming in and you keep Chilwell and sell Cucurella, I give up. Seriously, I give up if that happens.
Well, I also like him as a player. I think there is a possibility if he can be fit that he could contribute. But for me, again, here it comes to a bit of different topic. This is not the transfer that will make or break the Maresca season. This is not the transfer that will, or it's not the change of player that will make his system work from not working. So I don't know why, again, we are focusing on, I mean, Chelsea, not us here. I don't know why Chelsea are focusing on switching the left backs, for example, when we still have to figure out the goalkeeper situation. They have to figure out, okay, do we need to get a striker?
The situation is sorted.
Well, I don't think it is. I just think they don't know who they could get, or they know they can't get anyone. And this is also something I thought about the Chilwell transfer. Can they get a replacement for decent money? Because Calafiori would be great.
Called the Maatsen, but you know.
Well, the thing is that if we could get a Calafiori, that would be great. I liked him at the Euros. He was very intelligent and he was very good looking as a center back. But I don't know if we can get such a top priority target. And if we then have to sign another player, let's say of Dewsbury Hall's level or Tosin level, then is it not better to just keep Chilwell for another year and give him a chance instead of, let's say, selling him for 40 million and then buying the left back off of Middlesbrough, for example, for 20 million? Would that make more sense for you than keeping him?
If he suits playing as a left centre back or an inverted fullback, yeah, because I don't see Chilwell doing either of the roles that Maresca gives his fullbacks. So then, as much as I see your point, if he just does not suit what Maresca is trying to do, it's like, I don't know, if you had, I don't know if people know, but do you people remember Jan Koller? They're like 7 foot.
I remember him, yeah.
In the early 2000s, right? That's like, if Pep Guardiola signed him, well, that wouldn't make any sense now, would it? Do you know what I mean?
Well, he basically signed his Scandinavian version in Erling Haaland, but yeah.
Yeah, but at least Erling Haaland is quick as shit. Jan Koller was just cool. But yeah, I mean, like I say, obviously only time will tell what happens. Like Charlie said, it most drastically really depends on does a good offer come in or not. I'm sure if someone offers 35,
oh yeah, if someone offers good money, they will sell him. My issue is
we get 15, 20 million, I'm sure they probably won't. So yeah, it's one of those. I mean, you touched on Calafiori there. Let's bring him up, why don't we? Because we are interested, but we're also on the verge of losing out on him again. I need to quickly find the actual tab, and then I will be able to show you. Where is it? There it is. So Arsenal seem to be favourites now. Arsenal have presented a long-term proposal to Riccardo Calafiori after interest revealed last week. Understand players open to joining Arsenal if they can agree terms with Bologna. Chelsea are still there. Arsenal and Chelsea, the only two clubs in talks right now. So just to give a bit of extra information that people may or may not have seen, reportedly, supposedly, Basel, where Bologna have signed Calafiori from, apparently, they have a 50% sell-on clause.
Wow.
Which is obviously very steep, which is why Chelsea obviously are offering to Bologna a transfer fee plus a player. If you then get a lesser transfer fee, Bologna lose less money because less of the, 50% is not a certain fee, it's 50% of whatever you make. So if we give them, say, 30 million, and they only have to ship off 15 million to Basel, but they get a player instead who they potentially in 2 years can also sell for 30 million. For them, that's financially much better than if they just get 50, 40 or 45 million from Arsenal straight up, because then they lose half of that to Basel. So that's, in my opinion, our only way in this scenario. But at the same time, again, we have to look at the player. Why on earth would anyone choose to come to Chelsea over Arsenal right now if at Arsenal you're being given the hope and the chance to be a regular player? Like, unless at Arsenal, okay, you're going to be on the bench, and at Chelsea you get to start, then maybe it's a different thought for the player. But if you're getting the offer to be a big player at both, why would you choose us over them? I really don't see it happening. Charlie, I know you need to head off in a second, so I'll get your thoughts on this first. Where do you stand on it? I assume, like most people, you don't expect us to get him unless, well, we somehow find another weird loophole to give us the edge over another team.
I mean, yeah, I personally don't see us getting him. There's also the thought process of, like, we're so stacked anyway. Like, who are we selling? Yes, they want to get rid of Chalobah, but we know that Chalobah's more than happy to stay and fight for his place under no obligation to leave. You know, are we so confident that we can definitely shift Ben Chilwell? Are we playing? Who else are we planning to shift out? I just look at it and think this is a 22-year-old. He's obviously a talented player, good player, like him, but it's the same age profile as everyone else pretty much in the back line. You know, how many early 20s defenders do we want? Colwell, Badiashile, Fofana, this guy. Yes, Correa is 25. Yes, Reece is maybe 24 or whatever. Gusto, similar age. These guys are all the same age that are all going to be playing for the same positions, and they need minutes at this stage of their career to play and kind of reach their potential. So I don't know why, when we've got Colwell and Badiashile, yes, not necessarily they can play you know, as out and out left backs, of course. They're more than capable, in my opinion, of playing left side in the back three. Why do we need Calafiori? What's this obsession that Chelsea want to bring in another left-footed defender?
Well,
why?
we want to sell one. We want to sell.
Yeah, we do, but surely
want to replace them. But
yeah, but surely you would sell them first, because there's actually we have to be very confident that we'd be able to sell Chilwell, or that an offer would come in that they would deem acceptable. Let's remember, though, the players hold the power here. I don't get the feeling that Chilwell is desperate to leave Chelsea. I could be wrong, but I certainly don't get that feeling that he's looking.
It just depends on what offers he gets, doesn't it? If he gets offered by some decent club and they tell him you're going to be our starting left back, I'm sure he will be happy to go, because
maybe
again, unless something surprising happens, I think Chilwell will probably also find out very quickly that he will not be getting a lot of game time under Enzo Maresca. So
I mean, it just
why would he want that?
It just feels like with this, I get it while we're looking at him because he's a talented player, sure, but it just feels like we want everyone. We're not happy. We're never happy with what we've got. We always want someone else.
But never anyone really good. Well, to be fair, Calafiori is at least very good. Most of the players we try to sign on.
We always want someone else. Why? And I've said this with a number of players. Like, why is the first thought at Chelsea to always look externally? Why is there never why is there never a belief that let's actually trust our investments and believe in them and allow them to become as good as we think? Why is the first answer for everything to always go and look elsewhere and bring yet another player in? What? It's almost like they don't believe in the players that they're signing, that they've constantly got to go and look somewhere else. And if I was, mate, you're muted. If I was Calafiori, then I'd be looking at it and thinking, the manager might not be here in 12 months' time. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to play. I don't know what the situation at the club's going to be. It's not stable. I don't know when they're going to be in the Champions League again. I don't know when they're going to be challenging for trophies again. Arsenal, stable, challenging. Yes, they've not won anything. Manager's going to be there for a while. They're very close to winning the big trophies. And he's going to play there. So that for me is a no-brainer. So I understand why we're in for him, but my thought process is, like, why are we never happy with what we've got? Why are we always looking elsewhere for improvements? Are we saying that our business that we've done at in defence is not good? Are we not happy with it? Are we acknowledging we've made mistakes? I don't really know, but I just don't know where he's going to play. Does he go straight into the lineup? Is he better than Colwell? Is he better than Badiashile? Is he better than Fofana? What's the plan for him? It just feels like we want to get him so someone else can't have him.
Played as a centre back for Italy. I think that the reason for the interest is that even though we have Colwell and Badiashile, who are both also left-footed centre backs, that obviously, if we're doing what Maresca did at Leicester, the right back pushed into midfield as an inverted fullback, and the left back inverted to being a left centre back essentially. And if that is the case, you're like, okay, Colwell could play the central centre-back, Fofana the right centre-back, Calafiori left centre-back, right? And then you have the backups of Tosin, you have the backups of Badiashile, and you have the backup of Chalobah. You could have that kind of six almost as the back three in possession, which if you think of it that way and you're thinking, okay, we're not playing a normal left-back anymore, that means Cucurella can, of course, be a left centre-back, so Cucurella is an option there as well. And then, obviously, you can also shift the whole formation round so that instead of the right-back inverting into midfield, it's the left-back that inverts into midfield, and then, again, you could let Cucurella do it. But if you want the left-back to be a left centre-back, then only having Colwell and Badiashile, yes, you have them, but then what is about... Then you're almost forcing them two to be the only two for that position.
Yeah,
And then how many players do you have left for central centre-back and right centre-back? Not that many, especially because we have learned at least that Badiashile really struggles with defending wide areas. So Badiashile doesn't really seem to be a great option for left centre-back anyway. So therefore, if you think of Badiashile as a central centre-back option, even if he's left-footed, I guess you kind of need one, I suppose. But I do see your question, Charlie.
But it does. But what I would say is, though, we have to be very confident that we're going to be able to shift these players on and actually want to go to make room for him. Because
Dewsbury Hall has proved that we don't need to be that confident. Apparently,
yeah. I mean, look, if I was him and it was a choice between Chelsea and Arsenal, then it's, as much as I hate to say it, it really is a no-brainer to go to Arsenal. Look how many young players are going to Chelsea right now. You don't know who's going to play. You don't know who the manager's going to be in a year's time. You don't know what state the club's going to be in a year's time. It lacks stability. And, you know, you wouldn't, if I was him, I wouldn't be choosing him. I can understand why Arsenal would be a lot more of an attractive proposition right now. It's Champions League football. If he's going to move away from Bologna, which has got Champions League football right now, you know, at the end of the day, let's remember, he wants to go to Juventus. Obviously, Bologna don't want to sell to Juve. They'd rather sell abroad. But his first choice is Juventus. So I'm not saying he doesn't want to go to Arsenal. I'm not saying he doesn't want to go to Chelsea potentially. His priority is Juventus. I don't really know what's going to happen here. But I don't. Look, I'd like him to come, sure, because I think he's a good player and he would fit in the squad somewhere. My main concern would be, are we certain that we can get rid of the likes of Chalobah? We can get rid of Chilwell. We can get offers that we deem acceptable, and that those guys definitely actually want to leave the club.
They probably are confident. Like they were confident that they'd get front of shirt sponsors. But
yeah, sure.
Being confident just doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I hear you, Charlie. I know you need to head off, so thank you very much for giving us that hour. I appreciate it. Everybody, be sure to subscribe to Charlie's channel, Blue Brother CFC. Link is as always down in the description. Charlie, thank you very much, and we'll see you soon, mate.
Nice one, guys. Enjoy the rest of the show. Cheers.
Have a good one. Cheers, bro. We'll come to you. Speaking on Calafiori, you touched on him earlier. Thoughts? I mean, like I say, I'd like him. He seems very good. You know, he's at least a bit of an actual profile of a player. You know, not a championship player, not, you know, some random 12-year-old. He's actually a player. Okay, he's done an absolute wonder season with Bologna. Super surprisingly qualified for the Champions League. Has looked one of Italy's only good players at the Euros. So there is at least something. There's a little bit of, you know, PR there. It's not just, okay, if someone's talented, we pretend like... Anyway, do you know what I mean? So at least there's something. But like me and Charlie just said, why on earth would he be choosing us over Arsenal? Especially, I didn't even know what Charlie said, especially when his actual first choice is even Juve anyway.
Well, I think that this transfer is in this general category of absolutely non-logical transfers, which is always wanting the next big thing, which is 23 or under. So in general, without seeing him, I would have said, no, we don't need him. I saw him at the Euros. I really liked what I saw. He's also Italian. So this always gives you a certain level of confidence with Italian defenders.
Yeah, how many bad Italian centre-backs have you seen? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I would say if we can get him, okay, great. But the thing is that Charlie said it really well. Where is he going to play? My only version for how he plays is if we sell Disasi, for example, because this is the only way where he would be able to get minutes, I believe. Even though he's a left center back, if we sell Disasi, this almost means that Badiashile will play in the middle, and then Calafiori or Cole will on the left. So, because if we keep Disasi, I don't know how we shift up this back line in such a way that we can play Calafiori and keep Disasi and not like bench him forever. So I don't know. Would it be a good transfer? Sure, why not? Can we do it? Most probably not. Does it make general sense? Again, I don't think this is the position we should be looking for. But yeah, so we can never be sure with our board and our scouting system.
I get your point with like the Zazi and everything, but if you're essentially thinking of our defense as a back three without fullbacks, doesn't adding another centre-back actually make sense? Another left-sided centre-back? Because, again, I don't really see Badiashile as capable of playing a left centre-back. He's left-footed, sure, but I think if he plays, he's either a left centre-back in a 4 or a central centre-back in a 3. I just don't see him as really anywhere good enough to be a left centre-back in a 3. So then you only have Colwell and Cucurella if you want to use him as that. So
if we
could do with a player like that in that position. But
the
I'd
thing
like to
is,
hear why you disagree.
we have already discussed it that there are two versions. Either the right back goes into midfield or the left back goes into midfield. So if we assume that Reece James is fit, I think he is probably the better choice, like on paper, for that inverting center defensive midfielder role. So in that scenario, maybe it would be better to play someone like a Calafiori as a starting left center back than Colwell as a center back pairing with, let's say, Chalobah or Badiashile. And then when Reece James shifts in the midfield, you have these three as a backline. I don't know if it's so smart to have three left-footed center backs on this backline, but if you say we don't, then you have some options.
You want 3 left-footers,
yeah, but if we assume we do something like that, then we have options and we can always change out, let's say, one of them for Badiashile. And if the opposite happens, if Cucurella shifts into midfield, then maybe signing another left-footed center back is not the smartest move in the world. But like I said, we don't know what Maresca will do. We don't know what the board will do. So it's all speculation. I mean, but just judging him on the Euros, he looks like a really smart center back, because in center backs at a certain age, you probably want to look for experience and game knowledge and how they read the game. Because Badiashile technically is not that bad, but he can't read the game, in my opinion. He's not that good at reading the game. So this young kid looks a bit better at him in that department, but I don't know.
Yeah, I hear it. Obviously, I'm just going by the fact that Fabrizio Romano at least has said on a number of occasions now that we're looking for a left-footed defender, not necessarily specifying centre-back, left-back, realistically probably a hybrid of the two, which Calafiori is. So that's why I have to, clearly the club think we need it. Whether we think we need it or whether we do need it, two different questions, but the club seemingly at least do. Otherwise, I doubt they would be briefing such information to Fabrizio.
Or Fabrizio Romano is just fishing a bit to drive his price up, which is always a possibility.
You cannot forget Fabrizio is Italian. That may not happen for Italian players. At the same time, if Calafiori actually really wants to go to Juve, why would he be trying to push the price up? Because then Juve just can't afford him. So,
well, that is why it's smart to bring both Arsenal and Chelsea, because if they manage to convince Arsenal that Chelsea wants him and vice versa, maybe you get these teams to bid a cheeky 5 million extra, because it's always great for the fans on Twitter. Yeah, it's always great for the fans on Twitter and on social media if you get a player which the other team wants. So,
100%, that is very true.
There is some logic behind that.
Yeah, that you actually brought up earlier, and that is the goalkeeper situation again. Matt Law, but Matt Law says Robert Sanchez is expected to start as a first-choice goalkeeper and will be expected to perform a similar role to Ederson and Hermansson. Was he the Leicester keeper last year? Is that who that is?
I actually have no idea, but we can assume probably.
Please tell us if Hermansson is last season's Leicester goalie, because there's also been talk that we might actually be interested in, which is they should have just bought Leicester and Brighton instead of us, really.
Yeah.
But we would have been happier. They probably would have been happier. But Leicester already have a rich owner. Neil Barth has left. Wow. What? Hasn't he left ages and ages and ages ago? Neil Barth is the former stadium announcer at Chelsea, and has worked as a freelance journalist for a while, has had a bit of a bust-up with Poch towards the end of the season. He's also had a few questionable tweets towards the end of last season. Sorry, I'm mixing him up with Neil Barnett. Neil Barth, isn't he the Cobham guy? Let me check.
And Hermansson is Leicester's goalkeeper, but apparently Pice wrote his name wrong because he is Hermansson with one S and an E. But
close enough, I guess. But Neil Barth, if he's leaving, I'm not sure where you've seen it. Have I seen it on my phone?
I think in our group chat, someone posted it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm going to bring up now. I will quickly bring it up on screen, guys. Then we get back to the whole goalkeeper situation. Where is it now? Well, it's not here because I think I'm blocked by Chelsea youth because he's a weird guy. But anyway, so Neil, I can read it off here. So Jim Fraser has left Chelsea with Neil Bath set to follow amid radical changes to the academy management structure. The duo established a best-in-class operation with global renown and relentless success for more than 2 decades. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, we don't care about the academy. We don't use anyone from the academy. All we want to do with the academy is make pure profit because we sign all the players that are 12 or 18 or 16 or 18 or 20. We don't make them anymore. So I'm not surprised. But, I don't know if this is, I have no idea on the situation. Has Neil Bath decided to leave on his own accord? Has the club decided to let him go because they want to bring in someone else? I don't know. So, honestly, there's too many things that worry me about Chelsea on a daily basis, so I'm not going to add this to it because I have too many things to worry about here already. So back to the goalkeeper scenario. It's interesting to say, as good as Ederson, one of the best goalkeepers the Premier League has seen in a long time, not necessarily because he's the best goalie, but most successful, has won, 7 Premier Leagues, 6 Premier Leagues, however many he's won. And then also mentioning the guy from the Championship. Ederson and Hermansson, not in the same ballpark at all. Like, not even comparable. But anyway, it's another one where I'm like, the weird thing is, when we played against Leicester in the FA Cup, where Carney Chukwuemeka won us the game in the very last minute, Robert Sanchez had a howler that day. So I'm just absolutely surprised by how Maresca thinks Sanchez is the guy. Because the one time he would have seen him play before being linked to Chelsea, he was terrible. So I just, obviously, again, Maresca's style probably suits Sanchez more than Poch did. Absolutely. And Sanchez, in principle, can most certainly pass, but there's no denying he has the bozo gene. And he will never get rid of this bozo gene. That's what genes do. You keep them. They stay with you. You can't just change them out. You can try it, but it's not going to work. So if you have that gene, you're going to keep that gene. And he's probably still going to have at least once a game pass the ball straight to the opponent. But the problem realistically, Dimitar, is who are we going to get that's better? That's the problem. Because obviously we need a very specific goalkeeper, really, because we're not going to sign someone old and we're not going to sign someone very good because they'd be way too expensive. So, and then you're usually having to pick between either good on the ball or a good shot stopper. There's very few that are not already at a big club and that are both. That's like, even you look at, for example, for Georgia, Mamardashvili at the Euros looked absolutely phenomenal.
He's at Valencia.
Exactly, but he's not particularly great with the ball at his feet. So Maresca wouldn't want him. Chelsea wouldn't want him. And then, then what do you really do? Like, am I supportive of this? Not at all. But do I understand why it's happening? Yes, I do. Because I couldn't think of a goalie that'd be good to buy, if I'm honest. So,
Well, you have a point in general, but for me, this is probably the transfer that could make or break the Maresca season. And this is the position which I think has to be addressed. Maybe it's the most important thing that we should address. If they decide to stick with Sanchez and Petrovic, then they really have to work with them the entire summer, and Maresca will have to focus his attention solely on them. Because if he doesn't get this right, what will happen in the middle of November, October, is we're going to have the same situation like with Sarri, for example. Because I remember the entire year, and I mean the striker situation, the entire summer, everyone was asking Sarri which striker is he going to buy. And then he said, "Oh, I'm just the coach. They give me the players, I coach them." And then halfway through November, he saw that Morata cannot finish his dinner. And then he started complaining that they didn't get him Higuain. And I fear that if they choose Sanchez, Petrovic, or both, and if they completely fail, in the middle of November, we're going to be listening in press conferences, "Well, I wanted a different goalkeeper, but they did not provide one for me." And this will be a factual problem and an excuse. Yeah, but it will be an excuse, but it will also be a fact, because I am sure if you ask him now, he would want another goalkeeper. But maybe the club say, "Well, we have invested enough, or we don't have money, or they don't like his target." Because one also very important thing which you said is we don't want old players. Well, the goalkeeper is probably the only position where you could actually sign a 30-year-old and he can play for the next 10 years with a bit of luck.
Spot on.
And they still probably would not like to sign any goalkeeper goalkeeper older than 23. If I have to read their minds a little bit.
I'm not sure if he would be down, but what we should be doing is signing Gregor Kobel from Dortmund. That's what we should be doing. But obviously, it won't happen because we don't want him and he's arguably too expensive. You could talk about Diogo Costa, but he has a release clause of, 60 million euros? Never going to happen, that is it. But, yeah.
I have personally always liked Jan Sommer. I don't know if he can play this style, but I think he would probably be open to a move, and Inter would probably sell him cheaply because they always need money. So, hypothetically, if this could happen, I think it would be beneficial for the club because we need experience. When we say this all the time, and then sometimes we complain about transfers who are like Dewsbury Hall or Tosin because at the end of the day, they bring some experience, not ideal, but still better than a 20-year-old winger from Brazil. I mean,
but still worse than the players we're replacing them with.
Yes, of course, but
that's the part. Like people say, "Oh, Tosin is experienced." Yeah, but you're replacing Thiago Silva.
Yeah, I mean,
what I mean.
in our group chat, I've been saying maybe for the past 3 months, I thought we need Ivan Toney, Paulinho, and Joachim Andersen, for example, or players in that caliber. And then they bring us Dewsbury Hall and Tosin, which is like a level under what I think we should be going for. But again, no one asks us or me in particular, so we just move on and discuss the stupid transfers that Chelsea do.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not particularly looking forward to it, but like you, I wouldn't be surprised if it takes a couple of weeks, a couple of months until Sanchez makes so many mistakes that he gets dropped, Petrovic plays, and then we buy a new goalkeeper in January or next summer. I mean, Kepa very much so wants to leave, but Kepa is still contracted to Chelsea. I still wouldn't be totally shocked if Kepa goes to preseason, the Maresca is like, actually, Kepa is miles better than Sanchez with the feet and on the line. And plays him. Unfortunately, then we will end up conceding 15 long shots again next season, which will also be annoying. So it's like, but no good really coming from this situation.
As I said,
was signing Sanchez in the first place, which everyone outside of Chelsea's directors knew was a stupid idea. So,
but as I said, this is probably the make or break thing of the Maresca era, because if they get this wrong, it will be very hard to compensate for this wrongdoing, because you cannot compensate for an incompetent goalkeeper.
Yeah, well, to some extent I agree, but I think if you're playing very possession heavy the way we will, I think the goal, sure, in terms of playing out, there has some sort of relevance, but usually when you play the way we will, when opposition do get chances on your goal, it's usually situations where the goalkeeper is unlikely to save them anyway. So then I would argue the way we're going to play the goalie is less relevant than in a Poch system.
Yeah, but we're talking about mistakes, and Petrovic has some mistakes in him. Sanchez has a lot of mistakes in him. I mean, if you look at last season, maybe like 2 or 3 mistakes he did before Christmas cost us probably 5 or 6 points.
The only thing I will say is you'll have to expect, no matter who, for all of them, for the mistakes in passing to go down for 2 reasons. Number one, it will be practiced every day, so therefore they will get better at it. And number 2, the positioning of the players they are trying to pass to will be more suited to being passed to. While
that is true.
It wasn't the main aim to play it out. The positions were usually, they were further away from the keeper. It was a bit more tricky. While if the whole system is based on passing out, the passes will be a bit simpler, actually. And
I was not talking about only passing mistakes. But I think Sanchez, for the passing, you're right. But Sanchez also has other types of mistakes in him, and we've seen that sometimes he can make a very good save. I think he even won save of the month, or he was close to winning one of the months, and then he just lets in a shot near his right side corner on the close side, and we lose 1-0.
Exactly. All right. I think one last topic that I would like to talk about. Is there a second one? 2 topics that I would like to talk about. First and foremost, Pice called it major breaking news yesterday. Slightly overdoing it, if you ask me. But, still, I guess, fairly breaking news, I suppose. It turned out, according to Fabrizio Romano, that Carney Chukwuemeka has a £40 million release clause in his contract. Now, let's discuss this for a second before we round this one out, because in general, I don't think that's something that we particularly need to worry about this season, because with how much Carney has been injured, I don't think anyone will pay 40 million for him right now. Even if I think for the talent that he has, in my opinion, that is actually not a bad price for anyone to sign him. But I don't think after this past season, that's something to worry about right now. it's a worry for two reasons. First of all, if he does have a breakthrough season, then we could be losing him for drastically undervalue. And even if that doesn't happen, the big question is, if Carney has this kind of release clause, how many others do? Because having release clauses is good if players don't work out, because then you can sell them for a guaranteed fee and there's less discussions with other clubs usually. But imagine Cole Palmer has a £50 million release clause. Imagine that was the case. I don't think it's the case, but
it is probably 100 million. But yeah,
would it be? We signed him for 40 at the time. After what, 3 Premier League games? Would we give him £100 million release? Would he agree to a £100 million release clause?
I thought about that yesterday, and I just thought about it from an accounting perspective. You know, we always talk about this amortization, but amortization, you can choose how to do it. It can be front loaded, it can be evenly spread like linear, or it can be backloaded. So let's say, for example, we bought Carney Chukwuemeka for 25 million, and let's say that they amortized it front loaded, meaning that, for example, they amortize 50% of the value in the first year, 50 in the second, 50 in the third, and then by his third season, his market value is about 5 million. So with such type of logic, having a release clause would make it much easier to get rid of him. And I have a suspicion that some of the transfers that we have made in general, they are made only for the sake of future profits. Like Tosin, for example. Some people were hyped up, some people were disappointed, some people were meh, but he's a free transfer. Next summer, if they get an offer of 20 million, he's gone, because that's 20 million pure profit. And I think that if I have to guess, for some of the cheaper players, it kind of makes sense to amortize them very front-loaded. So like in 2-3 years, they have amortized, let's say, from a £30 million transfer, if you have amortized 23 or 22, then selling him on is a lot of profit.
How sure are you about amortizing?
I studied mechanical engineering and finance, so I kind of know.
I'm not disputing that in normal life this is how it goes. I'm asking whether, because amortizing works within.
No, I know there are certain rules, of course.
Also allow you to front and backload them, or
of course
you have to just split it over the contract length.
The thing is that before Todd Bowley came, we had no idea that amortization was such a crucial thing in football.
No idea.
So probably the accounting tricks that the Americans brought with them could be some
would have heard about
weapons.
Front loading and backloading by now if that was happening. I mean, maybe not.
This is something I thought about, that it could be a possibility. I'm not saying this is how it happens, but if such a thing is possible, and I see why not, and I don't see why it should not be possible, this makes sense, because otherwise, putting release clauses, which are maybe 2 times more what you paid for the player, is absolutely illogical. I mean, this is the only way where I can find some logic in them buying Carney Chukwuemeka and then adding such a small release clause to his contract, because if they don't do it this way, let's say they amortize it linearly on 8 years, which was the standard what we heard about, then his market value currently is probably dropped like 6 or 5 million. So if they sell him today for that release clause, it's barely any profit. I mean, is it worth even selling him? So,
well, we signed him for 20, didn't we? So
yeah, but if you amortize 4 of them in 2 years, then I don't know. It makes less sense to me, because when they bought him, they had no idea how he would perform. If he was a breakout star.
That's the whole problem with it, isn't it? Because they should have an idea how they perform, because that's the whole fucking point of scouting. Like, they should have an idea.
But the thing is, imagine if he had the season that Conor Gallagher just did, then £40 million would be an absolute steal for him. So
exactly my point. So that's why it's somewhat worrying, and I do wonder how many players this was done for, and I do wonder if this is a case of, the players we really believe in, they have no release clauses. The players we really only want to sell on for profit eventually, they all have a release clause. Or is it just Carney? Because don't forget, Carney was in the first summer. So maybe that was actually before the sport directors came in and realized actually these release clauses are a bad idea. So
this is also a possibility. Yeah, I know. Yeah, but it's still strange. I mean, it's still strange, and it still shows that they were not sure what they wanted in general.
100%. Fabrizio added on top of it, though, that on the player side, Carney Chukwuemeka does not want to leave and isn't planning to do so, because a lot of people were speculating, how does this release clause all of a sudden become public? There's two ways. Either it's the player agent or it's the club. If the player agent, the player is looking for a move away. If the club is releasing it, the club is trying to sell. Now that Fabrizio is saying the player doesn't want to leave, now it happens many, many times in football that agents want players to leave and players don't actually want to leave. Or agents are just trying to feel the situation.
It's
What's
funny.
happening? Does anyone want us? Could we get a better contract? Maybe stuff like this.
It's funny because this comes out exactly after Dewsbury Hall got signed. So, like, could that be a coincidence? I mean, the Dewsbury Hall gets announced, and then 48 or 24 hours later,
he replaces Carney. Who knows?
Yeah,
he's arguably in player style. He's closer to Carney than he is to Gallagher anyway. So there is most certainly a thought for that, which is also why I think the signing is so pointless, because I think talent-wise, Carney Chukwuemeka is better than Dewsbury Hall, and he's 5 years younger. But obviously the injuries haven't helped. But again, Pys made a very good tweet about this yesterday, where he said, we can't just call everyone that's been injured at Chelsea injury prone, because we have so many in that case injury prone players that they can't all be injury prone. So first we need to fix the medical department and see.
That is true. But this also makes a bit more sense if they want to replace Carney with Dewsbury Hall, because Dewsbury Hall has a much better injury record, so to say. So he could be more reliable as a sub or as a potential starter in both ways. So I don't know.
Obviously, Dimitar, I'm not aware that this has gone past you over the last few days. Di Marzio has, for at least a week, maybe two, been trying to make up random links. Well, I don't know how random they are, but he's most certainly constantly said how AC Milan are trying to sign Chukwuemeka. So
I saw that.
This is also why these are maybe it's also a Chelsea brief. AC Milan, stop trying silly things. We're not loaning him. We're not selling him to you for 20 million. He has a release clause of 40. If you want him, pay that or fuck off. Maybe it's
this also sounds logical. Yeah, I mean, they're
because
putting
they know
it out
no
there
one is paying that now. But the worry is if he does have a great season, the only way to get rid of this release clause is to give him a better contract. And why would the player accept the removal of a release clause unless you give him significantly higher wages? And like we have learned with Mr. Olise, whose transfer to Bayern still hasn't gone through, by the way. So
this went silent. Yeah,
it's very strange. Supposedly some sort of weird, strange extra clauses in that release clause that he has, and supposedly Bayern had to bid 47 million for Palace to talk to them, and now actually after that, now they have to actually pay more, which is just Palace things like that. To be honest, I am a little bit less mad at our guys for how they bottled it last year. Now that even Bayern are also having an absolute mare with Palace in regards to Olise, I will admit that. But the last topic I would like to touch on. This happened a few days ago. Obviously, that the whole thing has happened, but Chelsea have signed Marc Guiu. I will get there eventually, and I will become confident at saying this eventually. But obviously we touched on him the other day already, but now that it's official and everything, he's 18, comes from Barcelona. He's quite tall for 18. He doesn't look 18, does he? Like
he doesn't. He doesn't actually.
He does to 18, but he's Spanish, so likelihood of a false passport, I guess, a bit smaller than if he was elsewhere. But he certainly, looks physically ready. He had a few games for the Barcelona first team, scored on his debut after like 20 seconds with his first touch. So certainly has a goal in him. I like the whole introduction video with his grandpa. I think it came across quite well, to be honest. It's weird. Like, as soon as we sign a player like that, I just hope they get given a chance, because that's the part that annoys me. Like, players like Moreira or like Angelo or like these kind of players that will never ever play for us properly. I just hate those kind of signings. And then we sign him, and then we get rumors of we might be interested in another striker. I'm like, but then don't sign him then. Like, what's the point? You already have Jackson, who's 22. Well, you just signed another 18-year-old. You're going to have to use Nkunku as a false line at some point, because you're not going to play Palmer and Nkunku in the wings, and seemingly you don't want Nkunku as an 8, so you're going to have to play Nkunku somewhere. So imagine if we have Jackson, a new striker, and Nkunku for a striker. Well, good luck, Marc Guiu. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous. But from what I've seen about him, from what I've learned about him, I actually think he suits what we're trying to do quite a lot, and I think I quite like what I've seen. Obviously, he's only 18, so there's a lot of time to still prove or disprove how good or not good he is. But now that we've signed him, I would just like to be him given a chance. At least this year, compared to last year, we have the Conference League. So there is a competition where these types of players could, and in my opinion, in particular in the group stages, should get game time. And if they then do well there, then you can give them an FA Cup game, even if it's against a slightly better opponent or whatever. And then maybe they do enough to come off the bench in the Prem a few times. But last year, these players, like for example, David Washington didn't start a single game. Not a single game David Washington got to start, which I have no problem with because I don't rate him. But we signed him for what, 12 million or 17 million or whatever. And he didn't even look good enough for our under 21s. Like I know people that watch the under 21s pretty much every game. And they said he looked worse than most of the players that actually came from our own academy. And we spent 17 million on it. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, at least Marc Guiu, let's not forget, he cost €6 million, £5 million, barely any risk attached to that. So I don't mind it. Like I say, I just hope he gets given a chance. That's all I can say. Where do you stand on it, Dimitar?
I completely agree with what you said. It's just that I always have in the back of my mind this accounting gene. So if he costs 6 million, they can easily loan him out somewhere and just resell him next year for 15 million or for 20 million. Because he's just so cheap when you buy him in today's market with inflation and whatnot. Even if he doesn't perform, they're going to be able to sell him for 20 million probably in 2 years. Because he's Spanish, he's coming from the Barcelona, from La Masia.
Now he's been at Chelsea,
yeah, and also he looks kind of flashy. I mean, if you see him, he looks impressive. So I guess, like you said, I don't mind this transfer. I would like to see these players at least get a chance so we know what they are. But in reality, what will happen is we will probably still go for another young striker and then go into the season with a 22-year-old Jackson and Nkunku playing for this false regular 9 position. And this guy will probably go on loan or just play in the second team, the under 23 thing, if he plays for Chelsea.
Yeah, exactly. That is my worry as well. I just, because, I mean, remember back when we won the league with Jose, for example, we had 3 strikers. We had Diego Costa, we had Loic Remy, and we had Didier Drogba. And all 3 of them had their uses that season. 3 strikers is not necessarily too much.
It's not, but considering that we have no idea how exactly we're going to play, and we have no idea who will fit the striker role specifically. If it's Jackson, then is this kid a reliable replacement even in the Conference League games for Jackson for that style of play? If it's Nkunku, is he a reliable replacement for Nkunku? I mean,
he's 18, so with an 18-year-old, you can shape their style a lot, I guess.
Of course, but
still,
I just don't think...
That's what I like about him. He's quite big. I don't know exactly how tall he is, but he's also 18, so there's chances he will probably still grow a few centimeters anyway. But he's already quite tall for who he is. He's quite built, so he's strong, he's quick. He's happy to press like an absolute madman, and he's a good finisher. What more can I want from a striker, right? Like really, in principle, that's everything I want from a striker. Everything I've just said, that's what I want a striker to be.
I agree, But the thing is that you said it yourself, we're linked with more players, and there doesn't seem to be this overall strategy, which is also my problem. I have no problem for Chelsea to sign whoever they want. But I want the logic behind the transfer to be easy to understand and to be something I good or potentially good in the future. And up until now, I can say that. I don't see why we bought Dewsbury Hall, even though he looks like a fine player. But that basically means that either Gallagher or Chukwuemeka or both don't have a future at the club. And if that's the case for Chukwuemeka, it's a bit sad because we tried to invest minutes in him last year. Of course, he was injured, but if he was fit, he would have played more. And the same goes maybe for Noni if we buy a new right winger. We invested a lot of minutes in Noni, and now we're just looking to throw that in the bin and buy Elise, who is a better player, but still, this is not how you build a team. If you invest minutes in someone and if you see progress, the most logical thing is to try and work on that progress to go even further, because no one knows. I mean, no one knows what can happen to any of the players we have. No one knows what will happen to any of the players that we want to buy. So,
exactly. And the last thing I wanted to say is the biggest concern for me this summer is the players we've tried to sign and the players we actually managed to sign. You know, we wanted Osimhen. Oh, turns out too expensive. We wanted Vescoli. Oh, turns out you signed a new contract. Oh, now we're all of a sudden maybe not signing a striker and we signed Marc Guiu. If we wanted Olise, all of a sudden who is left-footed, all of a sudden we want a right-footed winger, which makes Olise look completely questionable. You know, like we were discussing, okay, first we wanted to sell Cucurella for the last year. Now we want to sell Chilwell and we want to sign Calafiori, but we don't know where we can sell Chilwell or Cucurella to. It's just...
It doesn't make sense.
People need to stop thinking we get transfer targets, because that's the funny thing is people still thought this after last year. We did with Caicedo, to be fair, but that was it. That was it then. You know, Caicedo for a few years will be the last super big signing that Chelsea have made. And I'm not necessarily only talking in transfer money, in transfer value and fee. I'm more talking like in just, why would big players that have interest from other big clubs, why would they choose us? They won't. And you've seen Sesko decided that, actually, even though we're a project, still better to stay at Leipzig. Olise, no.
The thing is,
go to Bayern. Bayern are a big mess. Like losing
I know.
out on a player to Bayern 5 years ago, 10 years ago, fair enough. Losing out to Bayern now, they were rejected by 9 managers, and we still lost out to Olise for them. Do you know what I mean? Questionable, but hey, I think it's about time we wrap this one up. I think it's been a good one. Let's see what develops in the next few days and weeks. Fabrizio said yesterday that Chelsea will be very busy in the transfer market over the next
and also
few
the Euros have to end. It's always after the end of the Euros that the transfer market starts kicking in.
Except that half the players we sign are too young or from a different continent.
This is true, but still their managers are probably the same as the managers of the players at the Euros. So
you could see it. I mean, today was, I guess, the first off day of the Euros, and there wasn't too much, but the couple of days off between group stage and round of 16, the news went crazy. Then the round of 16, it got a bit quiet again. Weirdly, Chelsea still decided to announce all the signings while the round of 16 games were going on. So let's see how it develops, I suppose, and what kind of players we do and do not sign. It does make sense that we want to sign players soon because preseason has now started. If we get new players under a very different, well, I guess the new players would, no matter who the manager would be a different style, but you want your signings done as soon as possible, so the manager has as long.
We have 6 weeks. We have 6 weeks until the season starts, so there's no time. Yeah,
exactly that. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. That would be massively appreciated. Hit that like button on your way out. That would also be massively appreciated. And yeah, upwards and onwards, downwards and backwards. It will keep going until. Well, I don't know. Until we win against City on the opening day of the season. Imagine that. All my negativity. And to be fair, you as well, David. Imagine we start the season beating City. That would be crazy. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
But it will be crazy. So yeah, it's one of those. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and downwards, backwards and onwards. I mixed them both now. And we will see you next time.